But under this system, the tendency was for businessmen to borrow as much as they could. If borrowing £100 produced £15 of profit, then why not borrow 100 million and make £15 million of profit? The idea became to borrow as much as possible, which meant that companies would undertake large-scale projects, that they would grow big. And this is one of the results of that mentality. In the autumn of 2005, you could walk down a high street and buy electronic goods from any of these stores. Dixon's, The Link, Curry's, PC World. It looks like wonderful competition, just the sort that free market economists rejoice over. But there's less choice than you might think. All these stores are owned by the same company, Dixon's Group plc. Even in the building sector, you can see the results of leverage at work. Here's a village near to where I live in England. It grew up over hundreds of years, each house designed by a different designer, built by a different builder, to match the tastes of the people who'd live here. It's beautiful, isn't it? But they're not building villages like this anymore. This is what they're building just around the corner. Take one green field and build 600 identical houses on it, all designed by the same designer, built by the same building firm, constructed with the same sets of materials. These are houses built for profit by a big corporation whose directors probably wouldn't want to live here. And this is what we're losing: variety, communities, life on a human scale. The big multinationals are coming to dominate human economic activity. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, they're working on £6 an hour for the local supermarket. At the personal level, the pressure caused by debt is widely acknowledged. Lord Griffiths concluded in 2004 that approximately 12 million people in the United Kingdom suffer debt-related stress, some 3 million severely. And because banks like to lend money to people who have collateral, it's the wealthy ones who usually get the largest loans. This produces a kind of vicious circle in which the poor stay poor and the wealthy get wealthier. Perhaps most worrying of all is the impact that interest is having on the environment. 10 years ago, I published data showing that the world's most indebted countries are also among its fastest deforesters. When there's a huge foreign debt to repay, rainforest doesn't stand much of a chance. The fact is that our debt-based financial system is forcing us into patterns of economic activity that are destroying the planet.
Does the Bank of England create money?
Do you know, I've never actually thought about it from that point of view. I wouldn't have thought so, no.
What do you mean, where the money comes from?
Yeah, who manufactures it?
I don't know, I haven't got a clue, to be honest.
With such huge profits at stake, there would of course be resistance to change. The global banking sector can earn in excess of $1 trillion of revenue in a good year. That's a big lobby in favour of the status quo, a lobby that's prepared to spend at least some of its profits on advertising, on political lobbying, and in the academic world too. For example, the London Business School was promoted by the big banks of the United Kingdom in order to create the next generation of banking executives. If we could have an honest debate on modern banking and finance, the public would soon come to understand why so many of us are in constant debt. But honest debate is one thing that's in short supply these days. On the one hand, we're told that our financial crisis is the result of too much debt, but then we're told that the solution is for the banks to lend more. How can that be? I'm part of a group of campaigners from across the political and religious spectrum who are campaigning for reform of our monetary and banking system. We believe that banks should be allowed to continue providing payment transmission services, but that the right to create money should be taken away from them. If new money was created under the authority of the state, and if banks shared the profits and losses of their customers instead of charging interest, then the people would soon find themselves living a life free of debt. You don't have to be a politician to see the attractions of that policy. Do you think that this is an idea that can be accepted across the faiths? Do you find much support in other religious communities or indeed in other political communities?
Of course, my joy is just how at home I have felt with the Muslims' understanding of economic life, and particularly over the last 5 years or so, the restating of their position with such clarity and simplicity. And I believe that everything I hear them stating about how money should be used and the transparency of its activities and the nature of binding contracts and all those things seem to me to come straight out of the biblical tradition in which I have been nurtured.
But if the state is to control the issuance of money, isn't this a recipe for galloping inflation? What guarantee is there that the state won't issue as much money as it needs to suit its own political purposes? The answer, in my view, is that there is no guarantee, except where we use a commodity of some kind, gold perhaps, as the basis of our monetary system. Anyone could create money in this system. All they'd have to do is go out and dig for it. This is a method of money creation that accords with market forces, that has nothing to do with interest rates or the whims of a privileged elite. It's a just monetary system, and it would be the beginning of a golden age for any country that adopted it.
The thing is that paper money is a promise to pay that is never kept. You can't go into a bank and get your £10 worth of gold. That means it's only worth the paper that it's printed on. Whereas if you look at any gold and silver, this is the gold dinar and the silver dirham, and there's a 5 silver dirham. These have intrinsic value. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad, blessings and peace be on him, this dinar would buy a sheep. Today it would buy a sheep. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad, this dirham would buy a chicken. Today it still buys a chicken. That's zero inflation in 1400 years.
But reform of the monetary and banking system is only one of the changes that's necessary. In many parts of the world today, wealth is concentrated in very few hands. For example, here in the United Kingdom, less than 5% of the people own about half of the country's assets. The reason things stay this way is that people's wealth isn't taxed. It's their income that's taxed instead.
People are persuaded, more and more, less convincingly in fact, that really the theory of evolution is used to promote the present system. And it says, we started off as apes, but now we have the Nasdaq. So what is there to worry about? And it's implicit in that. It's always getting better. If you look at the reality on the ground, more and more people are dying of starvation, especially in the third world countries. And this is all because they have, national debts have been created. Natural resources are being extracted for peanuts. Currencies are devalued. And as a result, the actual people, more and more, the number of children dying every second, is phenomenal. And this was something that was not considered at the recent G8 conference, is what is the cause of all these people dying. They didn't look at the financial system.